Welcome, everyone. I'm Liz Taylor, ocean explorer, naturalist, and entrepreneur.
And
And you?
I'm Sylvia Earle. I'm explorer in residence, National Geographic, founder of Mission Blue. And oh, I'm an ocean elder.
Oh, very
Thank you,
good.
ocean elders, for making all this possible. And I think we're ready to look at this amazing blue planet.
We are. And this is our show, Dive In, where we host this informal and open conversation with the ocean community from all around the world on topics of wonder, interest, and importance. But before we start today, a little bit of housekeeping, as we have attendees from all over the world joining. Um, let's see. Later on in the program, if you would like to ask questions, you can do so in the text box. And you can also raise your hand with the little raise your hand icon at the bottom of the screen. And please note throughout the conversation, we're going to be adding information in the chat box for your reference. And now, let's see, I am going to start the screen share. Ha! It worked this time for me. It's always a miracle.
And there it is.
And there it is.
You have to remember that the world
Is
is
blue.
blue. Better believe it. Don't ever forget it,
Exactly.
wherever you are.
Today, we're going to be continuing with Sharktober,
Yay.
with conversations about sharks and the people who study them. David McGuire from the Stewards is going to be joining us a little bit later on. He's actually joining us from a ship, so he's joining us from the field, which is
Good
great.
place to be.
So it's an interesting take today. Well, let's see here. Oh, so here's our friendly white shark cruising along,
We're diving
diving in with the sharks.
Dive in with the sharks. Why not?
And I especially wanted to share this great image that Philip sent in to us.
Oh, I
This
love
is
it.
his thresher shark.
Look at that long tail. That's one of the characteristics of the thresher shark.
It is that wonderful, wonderful long tail.
That they swish back and forth. Not quite like a puppy, but like a thresher shark.
Like a thresher shark. So
There's a shark.
there's a shark. So we've got David joining us. If he can join us in from the vessel there. You want to turn on your microphone and camera, David?
Yeah, welcome aboard. Oh, wait, I wish you could welcome us aboard where you are.
There he is.
Hey, be with you. I wish you were aboard as well. But you're
Yeah, I
with us.
wish we were.
Someday.
Spirit.
Yes.
It's a really challenging time right now for shipboard expeditions and so many new protocols to get through, and safety at sea has never been more important. So good luck to you guys out there.
But at
Thank
least
you.
when you go underwater, you'll wear a mask.
That's right. Where is your mask? You had it here a minute ago.
My mask.
Yeah.
But I'll have my dive mask, definitely. We're excited to go diving and find some sharks and get out there and document this kind of thing and save sharks.
Yes, in our last episode, we talked about the special situation that's going on in the Galapagos and the vast fleet of vessels that's just been extracting shark and squid and everything else right at the edge of that World Heritage Site. And that's where your team is headed now, correct?
Yes, via other protected areas, other marine reserves where there's a strong indication that poaching has been occurring during COVID because of the absence of ecotourism, also because these dive tourists are acting as eyes and ears as well as economic drivers to supporting local industries that are sustainable as opposed to one-time extractions.
Yeah.
So we'll be stopping along in Mexico. We hope to go by Cocos, some of the Central American marine protected areas. And the idea is to see what's going on out there. And hopefully these MPAs are still working and the sharks and other big fish in the habitat are being protected. Or if they're not, we want to expose things like that's on the screen here with those AIS, automated information system on these fishing vessels all around the perimeter of the Cocos or the Galapagos, but also to the upper right of your screen, what we call this the Galapagos Swimway, these underwater seamounts that are very rich in marine megafauna. And there's a lot of heavy fishing, as you said, and many of these ships are going dark as well. They're turning off their system. 2 were found mysteriously in New Zealand, meaning they had that radio signal when the ships were actually fishing. So there's
Right.
a lot of what we call IUU, illegal, illegal,
Legal
illegal,
and underreported. Yeah.
unreported. I should know this. Basically poaching or transshipment, like you see on this boat, where the smaller boats, which these aren't small boats, these are probably 80 or 100 feet, are fishing, long lining, and then transferring the fish and sometimes shark fins onto the mothership that goes off to Taiwan or mainland China, and the smaller boats keep fishing.
Yeah.
These in particular look as though they're outfitted to catch squid.
Mm.
They have the jigs,
Right.
the wheels of hooks that just keep, well, and they use lights of high intensity that attract the squid, and they're innocent.
Yeah.
They're innocent.
And the other piece of the puzzle is also just the plight of some of the fishers themselves, the people that are kind of almost enslaved or actually enslaved on some of these vessels. Our friend Ian Urbina we brought a copy of this book too, The Outlaw Ocean, that really depicts the situation that's happening not only with the overfishing, but the horrible conditions that many of the people are subjected to as well. And it's really,
they're innocent too.
Yeah, they truly are.
But not the industry.
No.
And not those who consume these wild animals.
That's right. The whales and other animals that rely on those invertebrates.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that swimway is just such a vital corridor for these animals. There's so many animals that not just some of the whale sharks we talked about last time, but we've got the hammerheads and these beautiful white tips that come through. And of course the big white sharks.
I love that picture.
I love it too. I can see it. Thanks so much to Amos again for sharing this one with us.
Looks a little bit like Amos.
It does. It's kind of relaxed.
Always smiling.
Yeah, always smiling, relaxed in the water.
Happy shark.
And the voracious sharks. But again, you've got all these fish that come through these corridors. And then these beautiful little guys.
Right. This image doesn't quite do justice to that lovely long tail, but there you are at the large eye is evident. I saw one of these in the Gulf of Mexico years ago during the Sustainable Seas expedition, and one of my colleagues actually got a thresher shark at 700 feet down.
Wow.
And got a beautiful image of this lovely species. They're widespread, but everywhere they're vulnerable because people are fishing sharks as products.
Right here off California, off of Santa Monica, Ventura, Santa Barbara, there's a commercial fishery for these mako shark. We've been working, and 3 species as well off of our coastline. We have so many species of pelagic sharks that come off of our coastline, and these gill nets have been hunting them for years. And that fishery, thanks to activists like Turtle Island Restoration Network, our big partners in this, we're phasing that fishery out finally.
Thank goodness.
David,
I was a gaucho at UC Santa Barbara and studying marine biology a long time ago. We used to see these big fish, including white sharks, which were caught commercially in the 1980s until they were almost extirpated or locally extinct. And they've been protected since 1993, and the white sharks are coming back, and that's why we're celebrating. That's why we celebrate Sharktober.
It's right. I remember being back at the original Steinhardt Aquarium, then I volunteered there for many years. Fisherman caught a beautiful thresher shark, and it was still alive, and he felt really bad about catching it, and he called the aquarium, and they brought it in, and we put that fish in one of those circular so-called doughboy tanks, and we all took turns just walking the shark, trying to keep it alive to bring it, get it stable enough so it could be re-released. And happily that one did survive, and we were able to put it back in the ocean, which was
that's a good news story.
Which is a really good news story. But
David, it's the illegal, unregulated, and unreported that.
Yeah, I remembered it after I stopped. Thank
you. I worry.
And it accounts for about 20% of global fishing.
Yeah,
I worry more about the 80%, the legal fishing. I really do. All sharks should be protected. I mean, I love the campaign to not fin sharks, but we shouldn't kill them, period. I don't know. You know, we finally got over it with whales. Took a long time for people to have this transformative attitude about whales. And some people back in the 80s thought it would never happen, but it has happened. We must do that with sharks.
It's a big part of our mission. We're working on that. And we find that sharks are worth more alive than dead, right?
Yeah, yeah. And again, this whole issue around these swimways, this one, you know, they call this the Hammerhead Highway, right? It's a great name for it. But you know, the hammerheads are vanishing from it. You know, the namesake is going missing, kind of on our watch. And it's so important. You know, some of the leaders of the countries are finally beginning to realize, as we say, that these animals are worth a lot more alive than dead, and starting to show some glimmer that they might come together and form and expand the marine protected area. And you know, I wanted to remind viewers again that it's possible to tweet to the presidents of these countries, of the president of Ecuador, the president of Peru, and really Costa Rica, and thank them for the leadership roles that they're starting to take in expanding, not only expanding the marine protected areas, but expanding enforcement, and really coming together in a way that can be incredibly meaningful for the future, not only of sharks, but for all of the other wildlife that use these corridors. So there's a lot of collateral benefit that will pay off in the long run.
Yeah, I like that term, collateral benefit.
Yeah.
I think you coined it.
I think I did, yeah. So, let's see what else we've got here. I wanted to show this little guy because I know it's near and dear to your heart. Because I know that when you're not out there on expedition on the ships, that you are doing such an incredible body of work in and around the San Francisco Bay Area, in a way, in that same kind of connective way, bringing communities together. And I know we had this situation here where the little leopard sharks, like this guy here, were just showing up in droves on the beaches in the Bay Area, dead. And it was a really awful situation, but at the same time, I was really heartened to see, just on social media, people were just calling me on the phone, what's going on with these sharks? How can we help? You know, what's happening? And, you know, you guys came out and really helped people to figure out, like, how could they report, you know, where to report, and to really try to get some sense of what was going on with these sharks. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about that.
Well, you know, the leopard shark is a shark that lives off the west coast of the Northeast Pacific, and here in California up to Canada, down to Baja. And they're harmless, they're beautiful, they're down there doing their job, keeping the bottom clean, eating the sick, the stupid, and the slow, and leaving behind the healthy and the fit and the fast. And they're beautiful shark divers, love to see them. Each one is unique, they're spots and bars. And we've had not just one, but at least 3 or 4 episodes of disease that comes through their nares or their noses through these waterways, mostly in the South Bay, but also in Berkeley. And I have to give a shout out to the Pacific Shark Research Fund, our foundation that is down in Santa Cruz, who's been really good at recovering these. And we have citizens, we're a very citizen science and collaborative organization, and have people submit these samples to Dr. Mark Okahiro with Fish and Wildlife in Hawaii, and they were able to determine the pathogen. The pathogen is actually associated with meat products. So it's probably coming through our sewers. And we see this actually in marine mammals along the coast as well. So it's a preservative that actually ends up infecting these animals. And it kind of makes them crazy. And they end up washing ashore. And since sharks don't have swim bladders, they really are the canaries. Because if you see 1 or 2 sharks washing ashore, there could be hundreds or thousands that have sunk to the bottom and never made it to the beach. And so it was a big concern. We got involved with Baykeeper about water quality, talked to the state regional board. We're looking at culpable cities for their treatment and trying to protect not only these, because they are that canary, they are the symbols of health. And when they're sick, the whole system is sick. So that includes rays and other fish and the marine mammals that eat them.
Right. And how about the seven-gill sharks? Were they affected at all?
We don't know. Salmon gills are generally deeper. We didn't get any specimens, but they live off the Golden Gate, off of Alcatraz and Angel. We know that they give birth. So with the California Academy of Sciences, we've tagged 150 of these seven gills, and they migrate all the way up to British Columbia, all the way down to Baja. We get data from fisheries. They're entrained in these commercial fisheries like the gill net that I mentioned off of Southern California. And then they come back to give birth. So one of the programs we'd like to create is a sanctuary, which is really a marine protected area, expanding the MLPA, the Marine Life Protected Act, into the Bay. It's in the law. It's not Region 5. I co-chair a state committee on these MPAs, collaboratives where we're getting people involved with learning, observing. There's MPA Watch where you can tell people they're fishing in the protected area off our coast. There are 124 off the coast, and there are no places in the San Francisco Bay where you cannot fish. It's the biggest estuary on the West Coast, so it deserves more protection. And that's a big campaign of ours. Well, I'm at home and not at Asia, or in this case, going south.
It's a Mission Blue Hope spot now too, right?
Yeah, San Francisco Bay is a hope spot. I think if we link up, we are linked up. Let's really make that a priority, David. Because I agree with you, recovery really does follow protection, and real protection, not just quasi-protection. But when you're serious about respecting all forms of life in an area, whether it's on the land or in the ocean, recovery, you can't guarantee it, but it's the best hope that you have. If you just say, okay, we're just going to visit it, but we're not going to take from it. We're just going to treat it with the utmost respect. We need large areas like that. Why not start right here in San Francisco Bay to practice what we know works?
Right.
We just have to get people to come on board and say, yes, we need this. We need a sacred place within San Francisco Bay.
And I really like the information you've been gathering about the seven-gill sharks, because I mean, there's so little known about them, but the fact that you're tagging them and then kind of seeing that they're going all the way north, maybe that kind of helps, and south, but that helps to build a case for additional swimway protection and building these kind of these corridors in the ocean that really require protection and really help to protect not only the iconic species but a myriad of other species as well. Yeah. It's really good.
Well, and especially, habitat as well, which is what the whole MLPA is really about, about the entire habitat and network of marine protected areas, so they can run from one to the next and not get fished, or swim from one to the next, but also protecting that habitat. And here in the San Francisco Bay, we find the critical habitat is eelgrass. And that's our coral reef, that's our blue carbon, that's our primary fixer, but it's also habitat for herring, spawning Dungeness crabs, other species of fish that feed the birds that come through here in this North Pacific flyway, and all the marine mammals. We're seeing elephant seals recolonize the bay now. The harbor seals are happy, the harbor porpoises. We see whales. I mean, the San Francisco Bay is cleaner, it's healthier. Now it's like, let's work our way down to the bottom of the food chain, or in some cases, predators and even the apex predators. Because even the white sharks like to come and swim in the bay sometimes.
Once in a while, yeah. And so many invertebrates are coming back too. We're seeing like these beautiful little snails and nudibranchs and things that you find those in the eelgrass too. It's just you say, it's sort of this keystone species.
Well, so much of San Francisco Bay has been filled.
Yeah.
Like it's, a third of it has been turned into land. But what remains, we can recover. We talk about land being reclaimed. We need to reclaim the ocean.
You might just do it for us. So
it's happening slowly.
Yeah.
Sea level rise.
But another thing that I wanted to talk about with your work is that, one of our last episodes where we talked about whale sharks in particular, and the role or the impact that marine plastics, ocean plastics is having on these guys, because they're up near the surface. As you can see, they're like sucking in water right close to the surface, where you might have like a Tide bottle or a Dasani bottle or toothbrush or some hideous thing floating by. But you've been doing a lot of work with sharks and ocean plastic too. Maybe you could tell us something about that.
Well, actually, on this expedition, it's really exciting. We're working with 5 gyres, who I'm sure you know,
Oh yeah.
and Anna Erickson, amazing pioneers, expeditioners, and scientists, and documenting and quantifying microplastics.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
we've been working in Asia, where there's a lot of macroplastics, and we have a lot here, but we've been doing beach cleanups with Surfrider. That's one of the things that we do with kids with shark stewards, and quantifying the plastic, but also quantifying the wildlife. I'm naturalists through the Cal Academy and trying to correlate the two if you can as a learning tool. But we're seeing filter feeders like manta rays. Nobody's looked at megamouth, the other filter feeder, to deeper sea, but basking sharks certainly, and whale sharks that spend a lot of time at the surface are in training these plastics, and especially the ones you can't see. So we're going to have what's called a manta trawl, and 5 gyres with the San Francisco Estuary Institute did a study that was published last year that quantified the highest amount of microplastics in anywhere else than anywhere in the world. And it's all coming out of our washing machines and that kind of thing. So these fibers are breaking down, these small plastics are breaking into smaller pieces. And we know through autopsies that they're actually getting into the organs. And the sharks have an interesting intestine structure, and it's called a spiracle, and a plastic ends up kind of concentrating there and jamming it up. So it's not good for them, it's not good for us. We really need to stop these single-use plastic use. If you want to protect the ocean, everybody can do that at home.
That's right.
Yeah,
it's the one thing you can focus on.
People really can make a difference just in those consumer choices.
That's one of the things we'll be featuring on this trip and quantifying, and especially I'm interested in these upwelling zones because we are transecting north-south instead of west-east. And now we're going to be going down this great upwelling system, both in North America and also Central South America, where we're going to see a lot of this bottom water coming up, how much microplastics are coming up there, and then also what's going on with the wildlife.
Right. A lot of it, because we see such epic vertical migrations in the water column every single night as so much biomass comes up towards the surface
and then sinks back
and then sinks back down, and you really do
takes all the micro and nanoplastics along with them.
And it really does make you wonder, like, how quickly do these microplastics kind of infiltrate into the deep sea and into the food chain?
Yeah, and into humans.
And back to us.
There's another reason I know Sylvia has always talked about, fish are our friends, and don't eat fish. And the fish are another reason not to eat fish, right? I mean,
that's a good reason.
Biomagnifying or concentrating the organic toxins that are in this plastics, as well as sometimes heavy metals like mercury. So by leaving them alone, it'll keep the ocean healthier, but also keep us healthier.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's time to give them a break and let things kind of recuperate. Okay, David. So I wanted to show this slide. It's a resource for kids out there who are watching, and probably some grown-up kids too.
Yeah.
To check out this. This is your new book that came out. Has come out. Maybe tell us a little bit about that, and then I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I know you've got a few slides you wanted to show us. So.
Well, thank you. I'm an educator. I love to teach, and I love to reach kids. And one of the things that Sylvia has said is, like, Sylvia, you probably have to say, I'm going to paraphrase it, but if you want to see the ocean, want to experience the ocean, if you want to change the world, take a kid and see the ocean through the eyes of a kid. And if you don't have a kid, borrow one. I love that. And I add one more. Take that kid's head and put it underwater. So you might want to teach them how to scuba first, but open up that world and experience it, how incredible the ocean is all over the world. It's so amazing. And during COVID, during the first lockdown, I wrote this book, and it's a science book, and it talks about diversity of sharks. It's illustrated, has activities, how do sharks float. You can try it at home. So it's a series that's published by Callisto Press of Science Books. And I'm going to do another one on rays. And they wanted me to do one dolphins and whales, but I'm like, I can't write a book and do the research and this expedition. So
Oh, come
I'll be
on.
writing, though. I'll be doing a lot of writing. We have a field notes column for National Geographic. I'll be contributing to that, and our Instagram blog, of course, trying to do some live feeds. But I'm really gratified to be able to teach kids and have kids teach me and open my eyes and remind, oh my God, it's amazing. That is amazing. We've seen it 100 times, but it's still amazing, right? I will never be jaded seeing the smallest fish or a piece of kelp. It's such a wonderful world, but there's nothing like being refreshed and reminded by having a kid. So I'm very grateful to have this book out. And we actually have a guide that's coming out as well that we did, that's illustrated, of sharks, skates, and rays of the San Francisco Bay and National Marine Sanctuaries off of the West Coast.
Oh,
and
fantastic.
it's a little more conservation, a little more sciencey, has a key, but so I've been doing a lot of writing.
It's good. That's a good thing to do while you're at sea and during that transit time, right?
Yeah.
But
it just came out last week. It's on Amazon and Kindle, and
stock up.
But it really is incredible what can happen when when you get just really getting kids out there and just letting them observe and then observing what they observe. We talked about it in the submersible episode about how we had the kids down in the submersible, and one of them observed a Hawaiian stingray just kind of coming into the lights of the submersible and then kind of lifting up a little bit with its big nose sticking up. And the little fish thought it was, it's a nice convenient cave to hide in. And all of a sudden it's like, they just were snacking away on these small fish, but it had never been observed before. And the scientists were
fresh eyes,
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's so important to go out there and build that rapport with kids, and for kids to build rapport with scientists and the ocean and mm-hmm. to communicate these things. And having a book like that is a great place to start.
I'm hoping to get it into, so one of the things we do is work in Asia every summer, except this summer. So for the past 8 years, we've been working in the Coral Triangle, creating protected areas, working on shark conservation, trying to reduce the shark fin trade. But I work with young Chinese, and I have Chinese students that I mentor here in California, and we enter them into Stanford or top universities, really sharp kids, and we develop programs to reach Chinese. So I did a film last year in Borneo, and the young woman wasn't wowed as much by the sharks as by sun bears. So we did a film in Chinese, short documentary, and it's on Chinese social media in Chinese. We did a film called Alice in Borneo's Wonderland with a young Chinese woman on protecting sharks, and she learned how to scuba dive while we were doing the film. And that film is in film festivals, including our International Ocean Film Festival that Sylvia attends and is on our panels quite often during our Sharktober, our big shark block.
Right.
I love it how children or youth teach me and remind me to look at the world through youthful eyes.
Mm-hmm.
No child left dry.
That's
David.
Right. I love that.
So David, did you want to show us the slides that you have?
Sure. Here we go. And then I just need to go to use.
Yeah, be sure to tell us too about what's happened, the good news from Florida about shark finning. I think you had to do with that. Yeah, so
Shark Stewards, we founded it after an expedition with my friend who's aboard, Captain Chris Johnson. We sailed to ultimately New Zealand and back. I used to work at UC Berkeley for the biology department, and I took a leave, and then this is when we discovered shark finning. This was very early on. This was before Rob's Shark Waters, before Wild Aid was really doing that much. And it blew us away. We were diving with hundreds of sharks on these atolls, and just a mystical experience. And then we saw dead sharks without fins. We went into the major port, saw the whole rails lined with fins. We decided we have to do something about this, because I'm not really a shark hugger. My graduate work was in ocean toxicology, or marine toxicology and environmental health. But I became a shark lover. I've always loved to scuba dive. I've been doing it since I was 15. But we got camera equipment, went back and produced a film and introduced the California Shark Fin Act. which passed to ban the sale and trade of shark fins. And that was signed into law in 2009. It took us about 4 years.
Wow.
And in the interim, Stephanie Brendel, a friend of mine with Shark Allies in Hawaii, had worked in Hawaii, and also there were groups working with us in Washington and Oregon. And most recently now, Florida is the 14th state to ban the sale and trade of shark fins. So this is all grassroots. It's largely supported by divers, by young people, and also collaborating with fishermen, which is critical, to work with fishermen to get them to realize it's in their best interest to have sharks in the ocean.
Here,
Right.
here.
Absolutely.
Everybody wins.
So that's really a big part of our foundation. I mean, education is number one, and we apply science and education towards advocacy to change not only minds and hearts, but laws. So we introduce laws as well. And we're part of the Earth Island Institute based in Berkeley. And I'm really proud because they're a great supporter. It's an amazing organization that's international that gives us so much support and bandwidth across the globe, because we really want to work across these big oceans with these other cultures to teach them or work with them and learn together how important the ocean is for all of us. So we just changed our logo this year from the white shark, which was kind of our, yay, Sharktober, they're cool. We love them here on the West Coast mostly, but they get a bad rap, right?
Sure.
So once we got involved with the white sharks conservation very early on, Dr. McCosker, of course, at the California Academy, who I've been in his apartment as a research associate, was a big champion of that, not only the science, but also the conservation. But now we really want to focus not only on the endangered species like the hammerheads, but the flat sharks also, the rays, which are being killed by the tens of millions.
Just
so we like to have fun too. So what's better than like sitting around drinking beer in Lederhosen?
Right.
So it's so fun to be here during Sharktober because we created these events. The surfers have always called it Sharktober because it's the months when the sharks have peak activity and interactions with humans. But until we had really great science, which was actually featured in Blue Serengeti with Dr. Earl and shown at our International Ocean Film Festival at the Cal Theater 2 years ago, we really didn't know where they were going. We just knew they disappeared. Well, now thanks to the work of Stanford TOP program and the Monterey Aquarium, we know these satellite tags are going west out to what's called the White Shark Cafe. They're diving, they're feeding, we think they're breeding. And we know they come back if they can bypass all of those thousands of long lines. We want to sell them for their fins. So, one white shark brings $20,000 to $40,000 on the market in Hong Kong.
That's shocking. How long are those long lines?
Some of them are 100 miles long. Typically, they're about 100 kilometers, so 60 miles. The closer you get to the coast, or US long lines are much shorter because we have much tighter regulations. So we try to reduce bycatch in the US. We have observers on board. There's a lot more science, but we were doing our fair share in the US of killing sharks and rays and seabirds as bycatch as well. And it's amazing, Liz. I've sailed along an entire day going around 8 knots, and from sunrise to sunset in the tropics, you're going by these buoys and these flags that have baited hooks that are sunk down in the column.
See, some of that is legal, but it's immoral. That's the other.
Yeah,
it's just wrong. True. It's wrong.
And some of it is unethical, as we talked about with the slavery that's happening on some of these ships coming out of China and Indonesia. There is a company called FCF that bought bumblebee tuna, and it is associated with IUU fishing, illegal, unregulated, unreported, or maybe I switched the 2 U's, but bad stuff, as well as slavery, transshipping shark fins. So I would adjure everyone, don't eat bumblebee tuna. It's no longer a U.S. company. It's associated with really bad stuff. So these are not U.S. companies.
I mean,
don't eat tuna, period.
No.
But I think, people really, they really don't have a good way to visualize how long those long lines are. But just thinking about it's 100 miles and like, what does it take to drive 100 miles in your car, to really visualize that as being this sort of sea of baited hooks.
Yeah.
Going that kind of distance. It's shocking.
Anything left in the ocean at all.
Yeah.
And a shout out to Jim Toomey, who wrote that, who did that.
Drew that little
Yeah, the Sharktober. Sherman. There you go.
That was our first one with this National Marine Sanctuary. That was 11 years ago. We're doing this every year. Now virtually with you, with the California Academy of Sciences.
That's right.
With Blue Endeavors, our dive partners.
Yep.
We had like 12 or 13 events at blueendeavors.org.
Yeah.
And talking about long lines and illegal, what happens, a lot of these fisheries are putting these lines up current outside of the marine protected area, in this case, Cocos, and they come through at night, and we've seen this, and they catch the silky sharks, the hammerhead sharks, and that line comes out of the other side, and they retrieve it or out of sight of the island. So one of the things that we did 10 years ago, and we're going to do on this trip, is we're going to be patrolling inside these reserves, and we're going to confiscate this illegal equipment. And we bend the hooks, and we say, you know, one less hook means one more shark. That fish will never fish again, because these areas of high abundance, high productivity are really the hot spots. 90% of hammerhead sharks are gone from the planet, and you have these areas where you have hundreds. We need to protect these areas.
That's during my lifetime. I mean, I'm a witness. You're a witness. Liz is a witness.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. We just can't let this continue.
And we need to do that through sharing stories and doing this. What you're doing is always, Sylvia, so wonderful. You're writing, you're filming. I mean, I remember you in the gym suit. The golden rectangle has always been important to my life, and now I'm proud to be writing for them. And this is my friend, Chris Johnson, who's a filmmaker. And we worked together, a really small team, actually, because you were talking about COVID. We can't have a lot of people come on and off. We actually have to quarantine. We cannot go ashore. That's okay with me. We just loaded up on fresh vegetables. And
gotta wear a mask.
Yeah.
And so we can't have as many people as we'd like, but we're going to be doing a production both under the water and on the water to tell ocean stories, but not just the bad stuff. The wonder and the beauty and the power of the ocean, and hopefully have it in our festival next year in real life at the Cal Theater, as opposed to virtually like we did this year.
Yeah.
So this was my first documentary. This was almost a no-budget film, translated in 7 languages. We had it in China. We gave it away. It was about not only protecting sharks from shark finning, helping support the Shark Fin Trade Act, but also to protect the Papahanaumokuakea, which then was a proposed National Marine Sanctuary that President Bush actually protected, and then President Obama times 8, I believe. So this film and other films, of course, are very powerful in sharing stories. And, you know, who could be afraid of a smiley shark like that, right?
Yeah,
I mean, we try to use sharks as rallying for the positivity and the health of the ocean, that, as you say, Sylvia, you should be scared when you don't see a shark.
That's right, for sure. I want this picture for my brother. He's a dentist.
I'll give it to you happily, and I'll send you more, because we're going to be going to Guadalupe, and we hope that, we've heard that there's been some fishing going on there. There hasn't been the dive tourism, which brings in a lot of jobs for the Mexican economy, but as well as keeping the fishermen out. So we're gonna go look for these sharks, these beautiful.
Oh yeah, these are such wonderful.
Off Monterey right now. I mean, California is like one of the best places in the world to see sharks and to dive, of course.
I remember diving in Monterey one time, and you know, kind of tooling around out there, and all of a sudden all the divers were like going for the beach. They were all headed for the beach so fast. And did you see that big fin out there? And you kind of look back, and it was a basking shark.
Yeah, a huge fin.
Yeah, and then everybody was like, "Quick, get back in the water! Let's go check it out."
Well, there was a group off of Monterey this year, at least 6 or 7, just last month. So we're on the lookout for those. We're on our way down to Monterey tonight. We're going to be doing some diving, looking for those, trying to document sharks. But also, as we get further south, to look at some of these tropical and subtropical species. I think, you know, in my book and in our films, we think about sharks, we think about the big 3, or we think about Jaws, or you think about shark attack, because that's what you hear all the time on Shark Week, or
accidents,
right? You know, or in the press, if it bleeds, it leads. I mean, it's very sad when people get bit, but we actually work with shark survivors. So our Southern California chair is a shark survivor, and she advocates for shark protection because, you know, sharks should be more afraid of us than we are afraid of them. But really, it's diversity. Sharks have been around for 420 million years in this group of cartilaginous fish called the chondrichthyes. I mean, they're just diverse in morphology or shape, in feeding behavior, in their ecological niche down at the bottom, the deepest, darkest. They're the mudsuckers. They're the sanitarians and the surgeons. They heal the ocean. They eat the sick fish, and they keep the ocean clean.
Oh, look at that guy. He's beautiful.
Salmon shark, which is often mistaken for a white shark. These come into San Francisco Bay. They swim by our coast all the way up to Alaska, and they eat salmon, and they're really beautiful and gentle sharks. And then we have the deep water sharks, the 6-gill and the 7-gill sharks that come
we talked about
San Francisco Bay.
Yeah.
And these are the hexanchid sharks, the hexanchidae. These sharks are what we say very basal. They're not primitive. They are highly adapted. They haven't changed their shape in a long time, 50 million years perhaps. These sharks have been around since Pangaea, since 200 million years ago when there was a supercontinent.
Yeah.
That's extraordinary, right?
It really is. And to think that, you know, to watch the attrition just in the last 75 years or 50 years accelerating, it's shocking. You know, we need to do all we can to help protect the habitat for these guys.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is, I mean, we're killing them faster than we can learn about them. Right. And they've also evolved and adapted into these niches, of these ecological places where they're incredibly vulnerable because they were the top predator. Now the humans are the top predators. Yeah. They're not adapted. They have this reproductive strategy that's much more like mammals, fewer young, later onset of reproduction. So they're a lot like killing dolphins in many respects. But also, we don't know how many babies like this shark has. This frilled shark that lives in the deep ocean, that does that vertical migration, that does that nightly commute. The world's biggest commute is vertical and goes back down into the deeper sea at night. We know so little about so many species. And if you don't know about them, it's really hard to manage them or protect them. So we need those kids out there studying sharks. It's great to have astronauts, but I think it's greater to have aquanauts. And of course, we've got the aquanaut in chief here. You know, it's such an honor, a real pioneer. So there's our book. And because we're losing sharks faster than we can learn or even appreciate them. And this is an underestimate.
Yeah.
At least 25%. It's probably more like a third of sharks are threatened with extinction. So we really need to work rapidly because sharks are so beautiful. They're so elegant. And when we protect them and when you can see them, we do have hope. And I'm inspired by you, Sylvia, and the Hope Spots. So we work with local groups in Timor-Leste and Indonesia. But I was fortunate enough to be invited by USAID and some local partners in the establishment of this Marine Tourism Association in Timor-Leste, which is just about the bottom of the Coral Triangle there. That's Southeast Asia there. This is Borneo, the third largest island. This is northern Australia. And this archipelago of 7,000 islands in Indonesia. Well, Timor-Leste, tiny little Timor-Leste, is one of the smallest countries, has some of the highest marine productivity or marine diversity in the world, as well as abundance because of this deep currents, the Indonesia through flow that brings bottom water up. So there are 26 species of cetacean, and now it has this network of marine protected areas. And we were able to help champion the Hope Spot, and I'm really proud of that. And I really want to get down there with my friends and bring divers in and scientists to support these local people in this network of marine protected areas and this Hope Spot. And some of the best diving I've seen in my 45 years of diving. Just,
so David,
yes.
We're going to need to shift to some Q&A now before we run out of time today. So
so I just wanted to just go through diversity, and we've talked about most of this, but really here is the hope, is providing long-term sustainable jobs for people like this young man. Learn how to dive with us for the first time. He's now studying to be a dive master in Timor-Leste. So hope from here all the way in the San Francisco Bay, across the bay, where we still need to do some work protecting
Oh,
sharks,
ah,
creating a marine
yes.
protected area here, but also where areas are already protected. This is the Viking, the boat that I'm on, and you can
All
follow
right.
it, trying to protect these sharks and support this Galapagos swimway that's been proposed. As you said, you can connect with the government of Ecuador, of Colombia, of Costa Rica to protect these international waters and
Yep.
support the work of these organizations. So we're going to be filming that. And I want to thank you so much for having me, as well as my sponsors.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing those slides.
Yeah.
And
Want to hear more.
we do.
You've stirred up a lot of questions,
Yeah, we have.
David.
So,
And
so we have a couple that have come in from Jack, who's asking us about, he's come back and asking us more about the Chinese fishing fleet in the Galapagos.
that you showed.
Yeah, and also, you know, what is the real value of each MPA?
Right. Well, we've discovered, I mean, this has been going on for several years, but in force this year, over 360 ships have been documented, mostly in international waters where it's legal.
Yeah,
But we
that's
do
the
know
problem.
some of them, we have evidence that they are encroaching. There's Global Fish Watch, the Eye in the Sky, that's looking at these, so taking these photographs. And so we really need to enforce these, find out who these people are, and then make the consumers aware that we're not going to stand for this, as well as the government, to try to just close that off. But because we know here in California, where we have great science in our marine protected areas, these networks work. They actually have more biomass, more living things. They have more resilience through perturbations or disturbances like sea surface change. They recover more quickly. They actually feed the rest of the ocean through the spillover effect. So fishermen benefit from these MPAs, these marine protected areas. So the more MPAs, the better. We're shooting for 30% by 2030.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, David, and I'm just thinking like the ocean. Until fairly recently, the ocean was essentially 100% protected because we could not get to most of the places that are now open for fishing.
That's true.
The high seas in particular seems logical, reasonable, and not a big hardship for all but a very small number who are taking from everybody else to just say no fishing at all on the high seas, like period. Half of the ocean, half of the world is high seas. You know, now that we know what we know, who needs to fish in the high seas? This is where most of the illegal, those slave vessels that Ian Urbina describes.
The 100-mile long lines.
And those long, long lines. And when you say, well, what about food security? You look at the evidence. Where do the fish that are taken there go? They're not feeding coastal communities.
No.
They're not feeding starving people. They're feeding livestock. They're feeding luxury choices in distant places. And they're tearing up the system that captures carbon, generates oxygen, holds the planet steady. So marine protected areas in coastal waters are really important. Marine protected areas everywhere, but I think we really need to scale up. And 30% is a good start, but we shouldn't stop there. We need to look at the whole world as our life support system and realize that we're dependent on maintaining this fabric of life. And what we're doing with sharks are great ambassadors.
They really are.
Because they get your attention. And they certainly get the attention of kids. And if we can get the kids on board, I think we are really, like, what you're doing is perfectly aimed to get those kids inspired, because they'll get to their parents, their teachers, and be the leaders. They will be anyway. But to get them on the right track, meanwhile, to do all the other things you're doing, to work with the government, to work with the fishermen, to work with anybody you can catch, and really convert them.
So we have a question coming in from Stephanie, who says, I have a 7-year-old nephew who absolutely loves the ocean and sharks. Any suggestions other than the normal ones to keep his attention while he's in landlocked Indiana? Are there any programs that he could
He'd get
get
that
in?
book.
He'd get the book, yeah. But you know, the shark just ate the book. Anything that you know, even involving freshwater systems, it all goes to the ocean. So even if you're in a landlocked state, there's so many things you can get involved in because everything's coming downstream, and just being involved in.
Where can people look at your films? How do they see your films?
Yeah, we have a video link on sharkstewards.org, and we also have a YouTube channel called Shark Stewards.
Good, great. That's a
We're
good
pretty
start.
easy to find.
Okay.
But you know, one of the things that kids can do, and I have a lot of friends, and I talk to their kids, or I talk to classrooms. They want less screen time, right? So we have this thing that we did we started here, but it's now with National Geographic, and it's called the Eco Blitz, and it now has to be kind of socially distanced. But teachers can actually go to the California Academy of Sciences or National Geographic, and they could collect data on plastic, do beach cleanups, do wherever they live. So you can correlate plastic or wildlife, and you can add observations onto iNaturalist and become a citizen science and learn as you go. And it's vetted by scientists. I look at the shark one, say yes, no, and it becomes a huge database. So kids can learn science, be part of it, and they're safe, they're being healthy, they're getting outdoors, and they can still have their phone because it's a tool.
Yeah, and it can be done wherever they happen to be. You know, there's all kinds of systems that are being uploaded in that iNaturalist, right? So not just along the coast.
A lot of plant insects.
Yeah.
So usually we don't expose the identity of people who call questions in, but
no.
I think we have to shout out to Jack Grove because he wrote the book about fishes of the Galapagos, and he's been our dive buddy, and he's a good friend of sharks, and so he's a champion who, like Jim Toomey, we need to give credit where credit's due.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, Jack, maybe we'll see it. We'll get your book aboard.
Yeah. And we had a question that came in from Paula, who was asking if we could comment on the news about harvesting massive numbers of sharks in hope of using them in a COVID vaccine.
Oh, because of the squalene.
Because of the squalene.
Yeah. Well, this is kind of an interesting story, but squalene is a product that comes from the liver, and it's used for many functions in foods and cosmetics, as an emollient. It's also been used as an adjuvant, a compound that actually makes a vaccine more effective by transferring the drug across the cell barrier. But so there's a group that's been involved and is concerned about shark fishing will be increased. So far, from what we understand, none of the vaccines are in development are using squalene, which is good.
Yeah.
We do actually encourage people to look at their labels to go squalene free. Just give those sharks a break, because the same compound, this molecule, actually is in olive oil and other plants like flaxseed. So
it can be synthesized.
But there is already, it's estimated 100 million sharks and rays are fished a year. We don't need 500,000 more for vaccines. And actually, a lot of those vaccines, a lot of that shark liver oil is coming from the spiny dogfish fishery off of the east coast of North America. And
Horrible.
The fish, the meat, is actually going into fish and chips in the UK and Western Europe. So a lot of people are consuming sharks without even knowing it. So
yeah, it's the
truth in labeling, asking where your food comes from.
Yeah,
that's right.
Hey, I was going to check and see with our co-host or co-producer Arnold to see if we have anybody that has a raised hand out there.
A raised flipper.
A raised flipper.
Yeah.
If we have any raised
that's pretty funny, actually. But so I see that Talia has her hand raised. Talia, if you're there and can unmute yourself, we'd love to take a question from you.
Hi, David. This is Talia Tamison. We've been talking. Hi again, Sylvia and Liz. I actually wish that you actually could see my video, because I'm in my classroom, because we're staying till 8 p.m. today because we're doing parent-teacher conferences. And behind me is all shark stickers.
Very nice.
But no, my question was with just the MPAs and everything, how is it that we don't even have 30% of it protected, correct?
No, it's about 3%.
Yeah.
Oh my God, how is that possible? Because I know you guys think of that too, because I just think of how all the laws are being put into place because humans, kind of overtook land. And I love using sharks in my classroom and in education because kids really connect to it, and adults do too. And just the idea of, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I've been doing Zoom calls since 7:30 in the morning. I apologize. No, the point I was trying to make is making sharks friendly, like the same thing and everything you guys have been saying, because that's the apex predator. And especially when you get into like a different type of shark, like a hammerhead or a whale shark, to get away from the stigma of Jaws.
Yeah.
It's great. I don't know. And I'm just curious why it's just why it's not happening faster, I guess, because everything is happening in the Galapagos.
Well, I guess we just have to scale up and get kids on board. The symbol for sharks, and sometimes you see the soccer team in Ecuador when they score, they do the shark thing.
Shark fin, yeah.
But there's also this, which is the hammerhead sign. If we can get people just to feel differently about sharks, to demonize them and really embrace them with a sense of affection and caring, and it starts with doing exactly what David is doing. You can't care if you don't know.
Yeah.
And what David and his team are out there just being a big voice for the ocean, and with sharks as great ambassadors.
Yeah.
Bravo, David.
Thank you. Well, I'm really proud that's the first time I talked to Talia, because she's a new volunteer and she's a teacher. I don't know where she lives. So we connect through this amazing internet. We have hundreds, we have about 15 chapters globally, including China, that are formed by mostly teachers or divers who care. And then I just try to feed them the science as much as we can, try to get people to support them. And they do whatever they do best. So, of course, teachers are so important. And it's really, to me, it's so gratifying, right? It's like,
yeah,
wow, she's part of the Shark Stewards team. And, I've never even talked to her.
I'm so excited. And your book's amazing. We're a wonderful, wonderful book, David.
Thank you.
Thank you, Talia. We have a couple of questions that came in from students, one from Taylor and one from Jenna, and they're just asking, they're students without a lot of disposable income right now, and just trying to set a path. So how can they best get involved in what you're doing?
We have a How Can You Help tab at the very top of our menu.
Convenient.
There's
yes.
a lot of things that kids can do, activities, sharing the word, not raising money necessarily, right? We've had kids sell lemonade, and that supports, and that's really precious, but also educating others around them, wherever they are. So there's a lot that people can do. Of course, we have petitions that are very active right now, trying to influence these world leaders, so people can sign and share those. Follow us. We have a Run for Sharks that's virtual. That's October 31st, led by my friend Maria Corsmeros, who was bit by a white shark and now is a white shark. She's a shark champion. And
Very
she's
good.
an athlete, and she wants to go to Hawaii Ironman. And we have this virtual Run for Sharks where you can actually go out and go for a run or a walk and join in together and support the whole shark protection network. And
also just working with Mission Blue and some of the Hope Spots there, and working with the Hope Spot champions is another great way for kids to get involved and to find out what scientists in each of those Hope Spots need, volunteering time and taking photographs, submitting them. Again, going back to that whole cataloging of the biodiversity that's there, and then kind of going backwards and comparing it to what was there.
And one of the questions that came in is about what we can do about reversing the ideas that make killing sharks still seem heroic, the shark tournaments and all of that. I mean,
yeah, Martha asked that question about what can we do about shark derbies and shark competitions.
So kids, listen up. Get out there and be a friend of the sharks, and get your friends to be friends with sharks. Make it seem like a really dumb thing to do to kill a shark. It's not brave. It's not heroic. It's really stupid. And if you can use your superpower as a kid to change the way people think about sharks by learning yourself and then conveying that knowledge that you have to the world, that really does make a difference. One kid at a time, times 10, times 100.
Kids have power, more through the social network, and more power than just about anyone ever, right?
Yeah.
And expose that and share those stories and place pressure and make a difference.
I think the guys who think, mostly guys, I believe, that go out to kill sharks, they must feel insecure. They have to feel heroic to kill a big animal somehow.
Or even a small one. You see them get the little leopard sharks in the bay or something. It's just like kind of horrible.
They should be ashamed of themselves.
Yeah.
Come on. This is ridiculous.
So
these animals are innocent.
So the last question we're going to take today is coming in from an anonymous attendee who's asking if we could recommend a couple of places that would be the ideal first shark dive. Where would you go?
Well, depends on where you live. Catalina Island. We dive the San Francisco Bay, but it's like diving on a cup of coffee.
You kind of feel for the sharks instead of looking for the sharks.
I think the best places are these national parks, these breed parks, the protected areas. Raja Ampat in Indonesia is a big destination that actually there was just a story about people were in there poaching sharks in this really heavily protected area. Of course, our Channel Islands, our national marine sanctuaries are great places to dive. But the Galapagos, of course, is one of the most wonderful places on the planet. But this big ocean has a lot of incredible places to go dive with sharks. And, Cuba, another hope spot, the Garden of the Queen. We're going to end up there next year, going up the eastern seaboard after we go through the Panama Canal. The Caribbean, if we can get in and dive with them, tell a story, share it, and protect them.
Sharks can't speak for themselves, so they really need you, David. And everybody else who's listening in.
Yeah. And again, whatever else that we can all do to kind of help increase protection for the high seas is just incredibly important. So keep writing those letters and tweeting to these governments, and let's protect these swimways and other places in the high seas.
Great. So, and keep doing what you're doing. It's amazing, inspiring people hosting these webinars. They're really fun. A lot of them are funny. Funny characters.
Humor is great. So
better characters than the ocean lovers, right?
Well, we've kind of reached the end of the show today, at the top of the hour. Thank you again, David, for joining us. And I want to say really thank you to everyone out there who's joined us today and continues to come back and visit with us every week, every month, whenever we manage to pull these off. And to our producers, Ocean Elders and Medley Media. And we really look forward to seeing everyone next time when we're going to be talking about photographing sharks with Michael Ah and Alex Rose.
We're going to go to Cuba, actually, because that's one of the reliable places. It's almost like when people ask me, where's the best place to go diving? And I say almost anywhere 50 years ago.
Yes, exactly. But
the south coast of Cuba is almost like it was 50 years ago. It's been protected. One of those great places where nature has been respected, even the sharks.
Yeah.
So
maybe the Ocean Explorer team will see you there.
I hope so.
All right. We'll look forward to seeing you underwater soon with your mask, of course.
Exactly.
And that this trip is hugely successful.
Thank
as
you
you take off sailing south.
Excellent. So thanks again, everyone. And we will see you next time. And I really do appreciate you diving in with us each and every time. And please send us ideas for future shows or future topics you'd like to have us talk about, or other guests you'd like us to bring in here for some little swimming about.
You have the urge to submerge.
Urge to submerge. Yes, exactly. So again, thanks everyone, and we will see you.
Sharktober.
Yeah.
Sharktober time. Thank you, everyone.
Hammy. I want to be a hammy.
Hammy. All right. Bye for now.
But we should remember.
Oh,
One last thing. We need to protect the ocean.
as if our lives depend on it.
Because
They do. They do. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.